Live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, welcome into the program. Today on the show, we have the one, the only, Mr. Alfvén. If you're thinking, wow, is it already the second Friday of the month? Well, hey, you are of course really going to love this because we're trying out a new format and it may change in the future, but for now we're looking at maybe even weekly appearances from Ralph that will be more condensed, shorter, and of course more timely to some of the articles that we talk about. But overall, it just means more Ralph, smaller snippets, and it should be a good thing overall. So everyone, welcome into the program, computeramerica.com. That's all you're going to need to remember because we'll have the show notes that Ralph puts a lot of effort into, even though they're not multicolored this week. But we have the show notes. We have, of course, past shows, future shows, podcasts, archives, video. Of course, you can check us out live video stream, twitch.tv/Computer America, where, hey, if you want to ask Ralph a question or, just talk to him and see how he gets these stories and what he looks for, hey, that's a good way to do it. So, everyone, computeramerica.com, once again, why don't we go ahead and just jump right into this? And again, he is our science and tech trends correspondent, and of course, he is of course with WKEX over there, and I believe it's the Tech Insider, if I'm not mistaken, is your title. So, yeah, everyone, welcome onto the program, Alfvén.
Hey guys, how are you?
I hope that you're doing well. Of course, this is, always good to see your face and see more of you, but let's go ahead and just kind of say, Ralph, it's a little weird because I'm like, well, normally it's like a month and we should catch up a little bit. How are we doing? But I just saw you a week ago.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And we've got a fun grab bag of stories today to share with everybody. And I kind of dig this weekly thing. I think this is great.
Absolutely. And yeah, you have, just a couple of stories and luckily it seems like we can actually get through all of these. So while, Of course, you can go and do some extra homework because Ralph wants you to describe what you look for and what you're actually giving people when you report on these stories.
Yeah, what I do is I cast a wide net of surfing the web, looking for interesting science and technology stories. Sometimes they tend to trend a little bit more into the futuristic, what's in development now, maybe not available right away, or they're research oriented or something along those lines. And also stories, Ben, as you know, that kind of fly under the mainstream media radar. They're significant, but they don't bubble up to the local TV nightly news or whatever. And so that's what I'm looking for, is to bring this stuff to the attention of our listeners and viewers.
Perfect. And you have a great selection here for us this week. And I think, let's just go ahead and start off with, the Parker Solar Probe, which, let's face it, I think a lot of people, myself included, have been obsessed with the James Webb Telescope. I think I kind of remember this one, but I don't really recall any specifics. So what is this? What happened?
Well, yeah, you raise a really good point. We've all been, and rightly so focused, especially on Christmas Day when it launched with the James Webb Telescope. And of course, as you know, the news is really great about that telescope project. It's deployed, it's in place, it's all good. So that's exciting. But in the meantime, there was some other really cool NASA news not too long ago, several weeks ago, back in December. NASA's Parker Solar Probe was announced as the first spacecraft to visit the sun's atmosphere. Now, it actually made that appearance earlier, and we'll explain in a moment, but they talking about the first issuance of data from this probe. So it comes from sciencenews.org, story by Lisa Grossman. Excuse me. In the show notes, we have a link, pictures, all this good stuff, so you can come out and see this later if you don't have a chance to look at it right now. So here we go. Recently, NASA held a press briefing highlighting data from its Parker Solar Probe that earlier this year became the first craft to enter the sun's atmosphere. And the Parker Solar Probe left interplanetary space and entered the sun's atmosphere this past April, meaning April of last year, where it took measurements of exactly where this atmospheric boundary lies, which is called the Alfvén critical surface. And I hope I'm saying that correctly. And this entry point to the sun's atmosphere, it's about 8 million miles above the sun's surface. Imagine that. What if we had an atmosphere that was 8 million miles deep, right? But in the sun, it kind of makes sense. And exploring this boundary was one of the Parker Solar Probe's main goals when it launched in 2018. Now, this outer edge of the sun's atmosphere is important because it marks where packets of plasma can separate from the sun and become part of the solar wind. I think we've heard about solar wind before, which is the speedy stream of charged particles that constantly emanates from the sun. And since the solar wind can potentially damage Earth's satellites and negatively impact life on our planet, scientists want to pinpoint exactly how the wind gets started to better understand how it can impact Earth. So that's a bit more about the mission of this probe. But once again, as you point out, so much attention on James Webb Telescope. It's nice to realize there's other great stuff going on with NASA these days.
Yeah, they have a lot of missions, and I'm expecting a lot more from them. But man, this and just reading through the article, I know that you just did the highlights, but they're I always kind of wonder this, Ralph, like, they're sending this probe. Obviously, it's something that hadn't really been done before. I'm always curious what kind of questions they kind of need the answers to that they can't just work out with computer modeling and just basic math and things like that. And just a little excerpt saying that, let's see, they said that surprisingly, measurements showed that the Alfvén critical surface is wrinkly. So, Ralph, I guess they answered, is it smooth or wrinkly? I don't know the implications of what that means, in physics, but the sun is kind of wrinkly, I guess. I don't know. It's interesting. It really is.
Would you be if you were like super molten hot?
I spend too much time in the sun, and I do get wrinkly, and it really is a bad time. But no, this is a probe that I did not really cover that much, so I'm glad that you brought it up again. Really, it's
really
very,
interesting
very cool stuff.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's story number one. Story number two, and we actually we were invited to go tour the Canon booth out at CES. I didn't go.
Cool.
But yeah, they've been working on some really impressive, because I think a lot of people think of Canon and they think old cameras and film, but no, they're doing a lot.
They are doing some amazing stuff. And this story I got from Gizmodo. The headline here is Canon's new sensor could revolutionize low light photography. I think in the past month or so, you and I did a story about their virtual reality capture attachment for their camera bodies, and that was very cool. This is sort of another build on their research and development group, which is, to your point, Canon is not a sleepy, dull, boring, old school company. No, they're doing some amazing research. So this is all about this low light photography breakthrough. So here we go. Recently, Nikkei Asia magazine reported that next year, which now would be this year, because this story I picked up last month, Canon will be coming out with a new camera imaging sensor capable of capturing full color images. Let that sink in. Full color images at 1/10 the brightness needed by today's camera sensors. 1/10 the brightness. And already, if your mind isn't just spinning with the possibilities, personal photography, fine. Professional photography, security imaging, right? Think about that. So among a host of the uses, this could be a real game changer for video and still image security systems, as I just mentioned. Today, most low light photography relies on night vision technology, which captures infrared light instead of the light in the visible spectrum. I think you know that, Ben. But there's no color information with infrared light capture. For example, when my Wise Cam that's on our, what now we call the nursery for our grandkids, when they come and spend time with us and they're taking a nap, and we have the Wise Cam, and the lights are all off and the window blinds are down and so forth. Well, it goes into black and white mode, right? So that's what we're talking about. So again, no color information with these low light cameras today. Here's how Canon's new sensor overcomes this weakness. Traditional sensors produce images based on the number of photons each pixel detects over a period of time. The more light and photons available, the better the results will be. Okay. Canon's upcoming sensor technology takes a new approach. It uses an electronic element in every pixel, and think about how many there are there today, that can multiply and generate an electrical pulse when just a single photon hits it, giving it much greater sensitivity in near total darkness. And Ben, you raised a good point before. What I do is give you kind of the Reader's Digest, super condensed highlights from these articles. Friends, if you want to dig down into this and learn much more than what we were able to share here, get the show notes from computeramerica.com for today's show and check it out. It's got the links, the pictures, and you can dive into this as deep as you want.
Yeah, for sure. And like, that's such a new way to do this. And like, again, my understanding from what I just kind of a little bit read and from what you were saying, I mean, to be able to, it sounds almost like AI and kind of learning kind of thing, where it can say, one photon hit here and we know that the light is low, so we're just going to multiply that by 10, and a photon didn't hit here, so we're going to, kind of do that. Like, it seems it's almost like assuming and hope, and they're kind of hoping it creates a really, really good picture, and it seems like they're on the right track. Very interesting.
Yeah, it is. And it's a big breakthrough because, again, I think the great thing about all these webcams that are out there today is the listeners, I'm sure, can all relate to that black and white mode when it's in super low light. And they're saying, hey, here, stand by. We're going to have full color in super low light as this technology democratizes, so to speak, becomes more prevalent, more easy to make, so forth and so on. Bring the cost down, and somebody like Wise or these other webcam makers can bring this kind of a product to market someday in the future. But for now, it'll be in the more high-end Canon cameras.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see if it has any effect on, because people take their their handheld Canon cameras and they have special attachments, and they take go out into the middle of nowhere and they take space photos and photography in like really low light, take pictures of the Milky Way or certain things like that.
Yeah, right.
I'm wondering if that would have any kind of either speed up that process or make it higher fidelity. I'm really curious what Canon's work, and I haven't said that in 20 years. I'm really curious what Canon's up to.
Yeah, you might want to have some of their reps come on the show or something to explain more about this in detail. It'd be very cool. And their 3D virtual reality capture dual lens thing that we talked about, I think, a month ago or so. That's also fascinating stuff. They've
come such a far, such a far away from, film is king and it will never not be film. Forget digital. Now they're fully embracing digital, and I'm glad that they're staying relevant. That's impressive. Story number 3, and let's see, do I remember? No, Sony PlayStation VR came out, and that was like a 4K headset that's supposed to come out. But Sony has other divisions, I guess, and they're working on an even better VR. And this thing is insane.
Yeah, it is. You and I are both seeing this kind of trend more and more to 8K, 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 right? Because when you go to, for example, our local Costco big box store here in town, you go up and down the aisles of the televisions. It's pretty much all 4K. That's now become the standard. Yeah. Now we're talking about doubling that with 8K. So here's the story. Sony revealed an 8K VR headset recently, and this I got from Eurogamer.net, a story by Ed Nightingale, and there's some pictures in the show notes here. And there's also a link to a video you can watch about this. So not that long ago, Sony recently revealed a prototype. It's a prototype, folks, not on the market yet, for an 8K virtual reality headset as part of its Sony Technology Day online demonstration staged earlier this month, actually as a reference to December. 8K refers to an ultra-high definition display with the width of approximately 8,000 pixels. And of course, Ben, you know this. That's double the resolution of the 4K TVs you see in stores today, of course. The prototype Sony VR headset uses an organic light-emitting diode micro display for each eye. Each individual eye micro display produces 4K visuals, and combined the result is 8K extremely realistic visual experience. So it's kind of a juggling match between the two eyepieces. The use of small micro displays also helps make the VR headset smaller, lighter, and more comfortable. During the event, Sony outlined how the upcoming VR headset could be used for more than gaming. This is a very important point. For example, for medical training, design engineering, and live streaming entertainment experiences. And as you mentioned, I do a weekly technology segment for the Mark Mason show here in Portland, Oregon. And Mark Mason is one of the announcers, color commentary announcers for the Blazers basketball team. Mm-hmm. And when the Blazers have games at home here in Portland, he says they have these VR capture systems getting the game so that users off site can put on VR headsets and kind of feel like they're at the game. It's freaky stuff. So that's what they're talking about with streaming entertainment experiences. So, however, no pricing and availability. Let me try that again. No pricing and availability dates were revealed at this event. So it's, a prototype down the road. We'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, and 8K, Ralph, like you said, 4K, people are still kind of getting used to 4K, and I think any TV bought in the last 2 or 3 years is 4K, but let's face it, if you haven't had to buy a TV in the past couple of years, you still don't have 4K, It's not, it hasn't been the standard for very long, and now they're working with 8K, although I have to say that in this particular application, kind of like you mentioned, the screen of the VR sits about an inch away from your eye, Ralph. So, you can imagine the better fidelity, the smaller the pixel, the better everything's just going to look because, it's so close to your eye. You don't want to see.
That's a good point.
The little pixelation, it really draws you out. So this is really cool. Obviously, it's, man, I can't imagine how serious the hardware is going to have to be to actually run this thing. It's, because, hey, let's face it. Your computer or whatever you hook up to this thing, your computer has to be able to handle not one, but two 8K displays, showing the same thing simultaneously. Like that's a big power draw. So
that is
very, very cool. Very cool technology though. And so with that, and I'm really looking forward to VR here in the near future. So, one day, but there we go. That's story. That was that story. Story number 4. Let's go ahead and jump on over and talk about, hydrogen power. And this story aside, Ralph, I know we were talking about Canon and how they're getting off their butt and doing stuff, but I also saw a story the other day how they're opening the first plant to build another supersonic jet airliner in Georgia or something like that. What was that thing called back in the 70s? And he used to fly over to Europe and America.
Like Concorde?
Yes, Concorde. They're they're building more of those finally, or they're going to start building those hopefully in the next year or two. A lot of old technology and a lot of new technology kind of blending at the same time.
Yeah, and to your point about what's going on in aviation, that's what the story coming up, folks, is about here. But just a little aside for a moment, the whole race for space planes, the single stage, like the Virgin
shuttle,
the shuttle kind of thing, and there's other companies out there, Radiant and so forth. The idea of a plane that can take off from a conventional runway, go up to the edge of our atmosphere, boost into low orbit, do its thing, whatever that is, travel point to point across the globe or whatever, and then come down and land on a conventional airstrip, as opposed to the big rocket like William Shatner going up not long ago, last month. That's all well and good, but gosh, wouldn't it be great if you just had an airplane that could do this, so to speak, or a space plane? So anyway, with that said, there's a lot of research and development going on, of course, in the aviation field. That never stops. But this story is kind of fun. I got it from TechCrunch, story by Chris Holt. Headline: designers hope hydrogen-powered plane will fly halfway around the world without refueling. That's interesting. Kind of a cool looking picture here, and it looks like a conventional plane. But here we go. Researchers around the world continue to look at the potential viability of hydrogen-powered commercial airliners. And here's why. Commercial electric planes won't be feasible until batteries become more powerful and lightweight. Of course, that makes sense. Hydrogen-powered flight is another possible way forward, and a research group, the Fly Zero project, which is led by the Aerospace Technology Institute, funded by the United Kingdom government, recently disclosed a concept for a liquid hydrogen-powered mid-size aircraft. It said the plane would be able to fly 279 passengers nonstop from London to San Francisco or from London to Auckland, New Zealand. What? With one stop for refueling. So nonstop from London to San Francisco. If you wanted to go from London to New Zealand, one stop only.
Great time to live in London.
Pretty great. The aircraft, which has a 54-meter wingspan, that's 177 feet, with 2 turbofan engines, would offer the same speed and comfort they claim as today's regular passenger aircraft, but with 0 carbon emissions. And of course, that's the beauty of hydrogen, the promise of hydrogen. And as I have a little reminder, you know this already, hydrogen powered vehicle, the only exhaust is heat and water vapor. Well, so the article talks about we're years away from commercial hydrogen aircraft becoming a reality. However, the refueling infrastructure doesn't exist yet, and hydrogen is more expensive and difficult to store on board than the kerosene fuel that's used in aircraft today. And you know what, a little side note here, it's not in my notes, but I thought to myself, kerosene. I'm an old guy. And when someone says kerosene to me, I think about old-fashioned kerosene lanterns and all this. And I thought, you know what, I need to know. Maybe you know this, but I thought, kerosene fuel for aircraft. What's the deal? And I kind of did a Google search and it said, why do airplanes today use kerosene as a fuel? So here's this scoop. Planes fly today, of course, at extremely high altitudes, which means they spend a lot of airtime in sub-zero temperatures. As a result, planes need to use fuel with a low freezing point, ding, 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 like kerosene. So the fuel functions properly without solidifying during the flight. I thought, all these years I've flown.
I had no idea.
Like you. And I never thought about exactly what the aircraft fuel was and it being a kerosene based. Why? And that was kind of a fun trivia thing to find out. It has to do with the temperature issue and freezing. So to finish the article, however, the story here, however, the Aerospace Technology Institute expects that by the middle of the 2030s, so that's not so long away, efficient hydrogen planes might be a more economical option than current planes. So we'll see, how it is. This whole hydrogen powered cars and planes and all this sort of stuff is very much in R&D right now, not really real exactly, but I think this is a fascinating idea. If they could figure out how to make this work and make it work economically, it could transform air travel, needless to say. It'd be very, very cool.
Yeah. And we're hearing more and more about hydrogen fuel cells in general. I mean, like there was the whole, all the buses at the 2021 Olympic, over in Japan, or 2022, I guess. They're going to have it this year, right? Like it was pushed back to this year, or did they already have it?
I think that's right. I've forgotten.
They might have already had it, but anyways, all the buses were hydrogen fuel celled, and the way that Japan justified it to their citizens, to build a whole new bus fleet is like, one, we need it for transportation for the Olympics. It's going to be carbon neutral. It's going to be good for the planet. And the second one, Ralph, was, especially after the tsunami, the Fukushima reactor meltdown, that whole thing.
Yes,
they're when we need energy, the buses can park in the middle of each neighborhood, and they can act as mobile generators for every one of these. And, they're renewable, they're portable, they're very efficient, and, it's just a good way to utilize these things. I'm sure that planes are thinking the same thing. I mean, it's a power source that can be used in so many different ways. Kerosene, on the other hand, that's pretty niche. I haven't heard too many people, like you. I've only ever heard of it in tiki torches. That's about my extent with kerosene.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah,
you think of it as like the lowest of the low technology food chain. Now I find out, because of its temperature resistance or resistance to freezing, that's why it's used in aircraft. Like all these years of flying and never gave it a thought.
Yeah, and actually, just to piggyback on that one, because we're going to wrap this up here in a second, but just as a little extra as for you, Ralph, as well, you can see here, this one's from CNN, but a flying car, this was just 3 days ago, a flying car in Slovakia was actually approved for takeoff, and we can go ahead and play the video right here. And honestly, it looks almost like a Hot Wheel car that someone kind of modified into an airplane. Very, very cool kind of video, and it went through 70 hours of rigorous flight testing. It got approved for airworthiness, and you're talking about going from any runway to any runway. I think this thing still needs a runway, but I think that this is the kind of car that would be able to fit in your 2-car garage very, very easily.
Wow. That's cool. It's cool looking too.
Yeah, it really is. It almost looks like one of those F1 motor cars. It's very cool. So that got approved just a couple of days ago, and there it is riding on the.
That's great. That last scene.
Yeah.
Hold up, freeze on that for a second, because that was the question I had. Fine and dandy, you're flying in the air, but when you get down and you want to be a car, what the heck are you going to do with those wings sticking out there? It's going to bump into everybody. No, I see now you're able to
fold them in,
retract the wings or fold them or whatever they're doing there. That's incredibly clever. And so what a fun thing that would be to drive down the road.
So I guess this car was already roadworthy and now it's flight worthy. I'm sure that it's prohibitively expensive, but it exists.
Of course.
So flying cars.
But it's cool.
And I'm surprised, Ralph, that the propeller back here, even when you're riding down the highway, I'm surprised that this isn't spinning. I mean, that's just fuel efficiency going to waste. That's a shame.
I would have it spin just loose. Spin loose so it freaks people out.
Definitely. So there you go. That was a very that was very cool. But yeah, there's a lot of very cool technology, science related, tech related, all together. You brought a good mix. Everything from space to Ralph, I'd say today you really focused in on the flying aspects of technology. But it was fun. So everyone, once again, if you want to check out more Ralph Bond Wicks, that's always kind of what we kind of point to. Ralph, if I can be completely honest with you, and this is just me to you, it looks like you actually redid it and did all this kind of thing.
My website?
Yeah.
I kind of freshened it up a little bit, kind of brightened it up a little bit, added some new graphics, and made it hopefully a little more pleasant experience.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking out loud to myself that, we of course run Computer America. I'll talk to you some other time, but if you wanted to, kind of host everything on Computer America, I could, kind of do pages. I could have a landing page just for you. And we could even put Computer America /Ralph Bond, and it would be everything right there. And I could update that for you, do all that for you right there.
Sounds great.
Yeah, that's something I could definitely work on, and I'll talk to you soon. But for everyone, ralphbond.wixsite.com for now. You can go there, and of course, a link over at computeramerica.com will have it right there. But everyone, we're going to go ahead and start the music. Ralph, I want to thank you again for doing this. This was under 30 minutes. Ralph, this is actually exactly kind of what I wanted. I think this went great. All right, perfect. So, and as for everyone, we're going to say goodbye, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day.